Yeah, so your uncle passes away, which hurts. You have something of an epiphany while visiting his gravesite with your dad. And then you wound up actually starting an organization that reconnects homeless people with loved ones, which has now resulted in 800 plus people reconnecting with loved ones and in many cases getting off the street. So how did that come to pass? I mean, that's a lot. Like what happened after you visited your uncle's gravesite? And this is at this point, maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's about 10 years ago. Yeah, I left the gravesite with my dad, had a really heartfelt conversation, and realized that the intention of kind of having this gravesite for my uncle was really that we'd have a place to commemorate Mark's life and have a permanent resting place for this person who never had that in this life. And I got home and started scrolling through social media and realized that I was learning more about my random acquaintances on Facebook and Instagram than I was at my own uncle's grave. So I just started thinking, how can we use the storytelling tools that we have access to help people like my Uncle Mark? I'm a person of faith, and I was in church a few weeks later. The pastor had this prompt, who is Jesus? You had to answer that with some kind of art form or creative expression. I'm not an artist. I'm not a musician. Jesus doesn't need me to sing a song. But I was like, well, I've always loved using simple tools to help share our common humanity and kind of unveil what I feel is ever present. And I got this question on my heart that was really struck me. It was, how would Jesus use a smartphone? And
Maybe
started
Jesus wouldn't
thinking,
use a smartphone. No, I'm kidding. But if he were to use it,
if he were to use it,
but if he were to use
yeah,
it,
probably fewer cat videos and selfies, right?
so you started this organization. What came first? The first beneficiary or homeless neighbor that you helped, or the organization itself?
Yeah, I mean, the first point was I spent a year just listening. Spent a year with 24 individuals experiencing homelessness who volunteered to wear GoPro cameras around their chests
Wow.
and narrate their experience of what life is like on the streets. And the premise was, hey, I just walked by you. You're still here. What's it like to be you? And I watched dozens of hours of pretty heartbreaking footage. And, the two things that struck me, Andrew, was first, every time you'd see a kid walk by, the kid would tug on their mom or dad's sleeve. They'd point, they'd look, they'd ask questions. And half the time the parent would scold them and say, no, that's dangerous. Don't do that. And, I'd always think, gosh, those kids probably knew something or know something that we've forgotten as adults. But the second piece that's really apropos to Miracle Message's founding story was in one of the clips I heard someone say, I never realized I was homeless when I lost my housing, only when I lost my family and friends.
Yeah, you open the book with this idea of relational poverty, and you're suggesting that we're relationship poor, and that kind of goes hand in hand with being homeless.
Yeah, I think it's so it's such an extreme version of low social capital, to use the sociological term, but such a level of relational isolation, brokenness, disconnectedness, that it's almost inconceivable unless you get that up close and personal to it. I read your book recently, The War on Normal People, and one of the things that you really talk about at length is how many people in the United States right now are one paycheck away from not being able to pay rent. And given the precarity of 40% of people not knowing where they get $400 for an unexpected emergency, it's actually surprising that we don't have more people experiencing homelessness in this country. Like, what's keeping half the country from experiencing homelessness? And what we're finding is family, friends, community, church, synagogue, mosque, like community, relationships. And so if you don't have that, or you've lost that, or it was never quite supportive enough, or it was just so resource depressed to begin with, it can be very difficult to get off the streets and stay off the streets if you're in that situation.
Yeah, you refer to this group as the proto-homeless, or maybe someone else did, which I thought was interesting. It's like the could potentially be homeless if something breaks the wrong way. So let's try and define the scope of this, how many people are homeless in America at any moment in time?
Yeah, at any given night, it's just under, well, it depends on the estimates, but around 600,000 people experience homelessness any given night. But over the course of a year, people who may come in and out of homelessness, maybe self-resolve or, are unseen, are doubled up, tripled up. So maybe not what we think of by the HUD definition as experiencing homelessness. It's probably closer to about 10 times that. And so in the book, we estimate about 6 million people experience homelessness each year.
Wow, that's a lot. So in a country of 330 million, let's call it something like 2%.
2%. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 1 out of 50 might experience homelessness in a given year. One interesting thing in your book is you actually list a bunch of celebrities who are homeless at one moment in time. Some of them I knew. I was like, oh yeah, I knew Jewel was homeless. but then like some of the others, I was like, really? Like I didn't know.
Who surprised you?
David Letterman surprised me.
David Letterman, yeah.
Chris Pratt, I guess there was, and then I thought, oh wait, there was some episode about him living in a van or something, which, and I feel like vehicles are where a lot of folks take shelter. If you live in a vehicle, like let's say your car, your Toyota Camry, are you technically homeless?
Yes, you are, absolutely, yeah. And I think even within the celebrity circle, if we widen that to folks who are, successful by whatever measures of, monetary fame, power, a lot more people have experienced homelessness than will share that they have experienced homelessness. I
bet we don't know about some of it. It's totally true. So you start Miracle Messages about 10 years ago, and and it starts with this footage, hours and hours of verite footage from people who are struggling with homelessness. What did you do next?
Yeah, so it started out, just to give the quick founding story, I basically took a walk down Market Street, went up to everyone I saw who was visibly homeless and asked, do you have any family or friends you'd like to reconnect to? Met a man named Jeffrey. He said he hadn't seen his family in 22 years. Sat down, recorded a short video from him to his niece and nephew and his sister and his dad. Went home that night, did a search online, found a Facebook group connected to his hometown, and posted the video there with a short note.
Nice work.
Just the entrepreneur in me, right? Just get things done, right? And within 1 hour, the video was shared hundreds of times, made the local news that night. Classmates started commenting saying, hey, I went to high school with Jeffrey. I work in construction. Does he need a job? I work at the congressman's office. Does he need health care? In a week, the town raised over $5,000 to try to bring him home. And in the first 20 minutes of the post, his sister got tagged. And we got on the phone the next day, and she told me that Jeffrey had been a missing person for 12 years.
No.
So that was the starting point. Yeah.
Hey, YouTube. Glad you're enjoying the podcast. If you really like it, hit subscribe, and then YouTube will notify you every time we have a bang up new guest. Thank you.